This is not a dream. You are a part of this living nightmare. Five terrifyingly true, scary Reddit stories. My first experience with the unexplainable. Written and submitted by iWatcher. Link to this story will be in the description. This is my tale from back in the spring of 2013. I was between 12 and 13 years old, and my mom and dad had recently separated. My mom took my two brothers and me and ended up finding and moving into this house. The owner had divided the house into 4 separate apartments. Now, before I continue, I'll give you a bit of context. At the time, I lived in Aurora, Illinois. The house in the story is located at the dead end of a street. Now, we moved into this apartment around my last year in middle school. The apartment itself was fairly small, with a kitchen, a bathroom, living room, and 1 bedroom. Everything was mostly carpet except the kitchen and bathroom, which had the same tile flooring. There was also a large square tile that was much different than the kitchen and the bathroom, which again were both the same. It divided the living room, bedroom, and bathroom, this square tile. It'll be very important in my story. The event and experiences happen at night, anywhere from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. I remember every time I'd wake up in the middle of the night, every night, around the same exact time. Now, I'd always get woken up with this enormous feeling of being watched and having a strong presence of seeing shadows moving across the walls of my room. Now, I could tell that something had opened the bedroom door the moment before I opened my eyes and woke up. When I turned to face the door, it was open in a way wide enough for somebody to peek with an eye into the room, only to see that no one was there. But I could tell there was. Now, I'm not a paranoid person, but in a way, I have strong senses, especially when people are staring or giving off bad vibes in a way, you know. It's hard to describe. But, back to the story. This would happen pretty much nightly for me sometimes. My brother, who was the second oldest, would, he'd feel it too, but he'd force himself to sleep. I couldn't, though. One night I woke my brother up and decided to go out to the living room, stepping over the square tile, which we felt wasn't emanating a strong presence that was just kind of freaking me and my brother out. We decided to step into the living room, and again, the feeling of being watched was just overwhelming. Being watched from the corner of the room, behind the furniture, and even outside through the windows was strong. Eventually, my brother and I found nothing. Both of us stood still and stiff in that living room, waiting for something to happen. Eventually, the door to our apartment opened, and it was our mother who was coming in from work. And eventually, we told her the intuition that we had both had. But she just brushed it off as us having wild imagination, scolding us for maybe watching bad things on TV. Another event happened when my mom, brothers, and I were having dinner out of nowhere. She got up from her seat and rushed over to the bedroom and slammed open the door, looked around, and we asked her what was wrong. She said it was just nothing. We didn't live in that house for too long, maybe over half a year. We moved to California in the autumn of 2013. Around my late years in high school, I remember that I and my brother, the second oldest, recalled the experiences that we had and told our mother. To our surprise, she agreed with us. That day that we were having dinner and she slammed open the door, She told us that there was a strong and horrible presence watching us, and that she reacted to it. She said she didn't want to tell us because she didn't want us to be even more afraid or worried. We all agreed that we were experiencing something paranormal or otherworldly, especially that square tile that divided the living room, the bathroom, and the bedroom. It was the main hotspot for it. Yeah. It's been 10, 11 years since then, and I'm now 23 years old, so I can't recall much from those events that I had. Probably from how terrified I was. Any questions, feel free to ask. I do recall the house and the area surrounding, but I'm not going to disclose that information as the house is probably still being used for renting, and it's not a place for paranormal touring. This has been, so far, my only and first unexplainable experience. Mimics can fuck right off. Written and submitted by Butterfly Nana 8. Another post reminded me of something. One summer my dad was home for a few weeks to fix the roof on one of the buildings on our property. I was in a bad place health-wise, so I was mostly just in the house crocheting and watching scary movies. One day, it was pretty windy. It's usually windy here, but it was rattling the windows and making a lot of noise. Clearly not a great day to be out on the roof, so my dad had promised that he wouldn't get up on the ladder and just do some other yard work. I'd grown tired of whatever I had been watching, and so I had the TV off and was focusing on my crocheting. My dad hadn't been back to the house since lunch, but he had said that he'd probably just lay in the hammock and read for a bit. I suddenly heard him scream my name. His voice for sure, with his unique accent in a terrified tone. My name is Vanessa, so it wasn't something indistinct or easily misheard. I was worried that he had gotten on the roof and lost the ladder, that he was hanging off at the roof and calling to me in terror. So I ran to him as fast as I could, straight into him around the back of the house. He has a terrified look on his face, and he was out of breath like he'd been running too. And he asked me, "What's wrong?" And I said I'd heard him scream my name, so I assumed he was in danger. He said that he had heard me screaming in fear as if I was hurt or in danger. Now, be cool about this. I call my dad Daddy. Anyway, Daddy does not sound anything like Vanessa. Like at all. And we had both hurried, so it had been at the same time that we had both heard the screams. And in each other's voices. For weeks, we tried to debunk this occurrence. We rattled loose the windows, creaked doors, listened to the tree branches when it was windy, etc. Nothing came close. We've had a lot of small spooky things happen on the property before, but this one was obnoxious because of the mimicry of our voices. We can't figure out why it happened. If it was a ghost, demon, or whatever the fuck, what was it trying to accomplish? Was it just pulling a prank? Either way, we still check out any weird shit and don't let this instance of mimicry lead us to assuming it's a trick instead of an actual emergency. Kind of in a hurry. Written and submitted by Meow Zoinkers. Okay, so I'm still paranoid writing this, even though I have the comfort of my mom's presence beside me. I'll just sum it up. I live in a village area. It hasn't been long since I moved to my hometown, and it's kind of common for us here to narrate spooky stuff and all. Sometimes the stories are funny or scary, and if it's really unnerving, then I don't sleep properly at night, and I stay awake, my heart beating fast, and my mind being unable to think properly without coming up with 10 more possibilities. So today, my parents left me and my sis to go to someone who's sort of like a priest. Like the things they deal with are similar to someone who deals with the spookies. I forgot the name, and I'm not too bothered to remember because I'm still scared to think in anything related to the ghosts. Let me explain. My dad told me that a few days ago the tin wall that we had put in place to separate our area from the neighbors in the south made a strange rattling sound when he was going back to the lawn. The south of my home is kind of narrow since the tin wall barricades the neighbor's house and the drain alongside it, and the space isn't very wide, but it's enough to let people pass through it. Anyway, he said that the rattle was out of the blue and that he didn't think much of it at first, just thought it was one of the dogs in the area and went back again, but not before hearing another rattle. He checked underneath the space that the tin wall had with his flashlight that he had at the time. Even checked the surrounding area and the wall itself, but nothing made the rattle that he heard. He left and told my mom about it, who later suggested that they go to the lady who deals with the things, you know. Today, they went and the lady told them to conduct a prayer at her house someday. Not sure when, they didn't tell me a date. Now, if that wasn't unsettling enough, I have to tell you what happened before I downloaded to Reddit, just for the sole purpose of writing this. I was in my room and organizing my stuff when I heard a strong wind blow outside, and the force was enough to move my curtains. I know the air must have come inside due to the obvious air gaps in the frame and all, but it was so strange. Mind you that the windows were closed, and the kind of wind that I heard and witnessed only came during stormy weather. But worst of all, I heard a tin wall rattle from outside. I got fucking scared and ran to my mom and just settled in bed with her. I still am, and I refuse to go in my room to sleep alone. Not after whatever the fuck happened. I'm still flinching and freezing at the slightest movement sounds. My sister's still awake and playing music, so I'm glad for that. Otherwise, I wouldn't know how to deal with the silence. The fridge just began running again. I almost got scared. Ugh. I know that kind of wind wasn't audible in other areas, and no fucking way that kind of wind was unnoticed. Usually if the winds are fast, then you'd hear them throughout the whole house, but this one, only in my room, and my room is the only other room that can directly hear stuff from the outside, like the cats fighting on the neighbors' roofs, which don't bother me. But that rattle did, and boy did it scare me enough that I don't want to enter my room again until morning. Fuck. Okay. I'll collect myself and try to sleep. It's 1 a.m. and I hope it's morning soon. I'll delete this account later when I feel safe enough to not document anything else. Cheers. Update. So, I didn't sleep until 2 in the morning since I was watching cat videos to calm myself down. It's 11 in the morning. And now that I think about it, the curtains moving because of the wind is kind of impossible. See, the direction that the curtains moved was toward me, meaning that the wind had to be strong and directly blown in front of the house to achieve that effect. Second, there's an open shed in front of my room, and its width is from my room to half of the living room on the other side, and I don't think direct wind can even come from that side since it literally acts as a wall. Also, During storms, I've noticed that my curtains never moved, unlike the one I witnessed yesterday. The event happened at around 11:30 p.m., and I'm even more creeped out by this. None of the times that I spent my time awake during storms, whether it be morning or midnight, did the curtains ever even move because of the wind. It's because it's not possible for them to have moved in the direction that they did. My dad says that the rattling that I heard was because of the dogs, but I've spent my waking hours listening to the nature outside, and I can assure you that the village dogs do not make such noise when passing from the gap of the tin walls. They can move pretty easily around the walls and are tall enough to shield our view from the neighboring houses. But there is a gap below, so they can pass through without any issues. There's also a door so that we can go and come by our neighbors whenever we want, and we usually lock that door around 9 or 10, when everyone in the neighborhood is usually either in bed or has just finished eating. Also, about the prayer around 7 or 8 in the morning, my dad went to buy the necessary requirements like the offerings and all, so maybe they're doing the prayer today or tomorrow. I'm still kind of hesitant to sleep in my room tonight, but I'll try. Hopefully, I don't run out like a chicken and sleep beside my mom again. Something in my house is mimicking voices and whistles. Written and submitted by Anonymous. For some context, I live in a 2-story house by myself with my cat Noodle. When I first moved in about 2 months ago, the place didn't seem creepy or haunted in the slightest, which is surprising. I'm usually very scared of sleeping in a house alone. Well, starting about 3 weeks ago, there have been a couple instances of hearing my voice mimicked back to me from another room or downstairs, most of which I brushed off as imagination because they were so quiet. I always say, "Hey buddy," to my cat in the morning. So when I heard a very clear, "Hey buddy," from behind the closed door of another room, which was empty, I took it more seriously. That has happened a couple times now, from different areas of the house. The person who's staying in my house to take care of my cat while I'm away this week just told me today that he's heard his own whistle mimicked back to him from downstairs in the morning. He does a very specific whistle to call the cat. He grabbed his keys and just left immediately. I've had plenty of paranormal experiences throughout my life, but I've never had to handle it alone. This is making me scared to go back home and be all alone at night. Does anyone have any advice or similar experiences? Update. Apparently, my kitchen cabinet opened on its own. Hopefully he can film it if it happens again. Another person was over with him to feed the cat this evening. They felt uncomfortable near the doorway to my room, so this is all just great for my stress levels. Peekaboo. Who are you? 1988. That was the year we moved out of our apartment and into our house in Layton, Utah. Not like I expect you to know where that is. It's roughly 20 to 30 minutes north of Salt Lake City. Summer had just begun and my 8th birthday was coming up, and I was stoked to have a whole new house and neighborhood to explore, not to mention the possibility of new friends and fun. The terrifying events that would occur over the next 16 years that we lived there were far from anything that my fragile little mind was prepared for, or really even thought was possible. Lucky for me, the really crazy shit didn't happen until a few years after we had moved in. For example, the experience that I last told you about, titled The Laundry Room, in episode 4 of 5 Terrifyingly True Scary Reddit Stories. If you haven't checked that out yet, do. It'll help you understand not only the basic layout of this area, but why spending time there creeped me out anyway. I'll add the link at the end of the video. Now, let's get to the reason you're here. You are here to listen to me tell you about one of the most unbelievably bone-chilling moments of my entire life. Something it would seem that most people never have the displeasure of experiencing. But if I'm going to share this with you, I need you to understand something, okay? This is not just a story that I created to have something spooky and entertaining to tell the lot of you, or other people around a campfire. Make no mistake. Every single word of this event in my life is 100% true. My parents and I had been living in this house for about 8 years now. It was summer of 1996, meaning that I had just turned 16. Yeah, I'm kind of an old fart. This is also around the time when really crazy shit started to happen to me at this house. In case you don't remember, or you haven't listened to the first story, first of all, shame on you. The basement in this house was unfinished, meaning it had been framed out for some rooms, but otherwise was just concrete with some wiring and insulation. Up until now, my bedroom had been upstairs across the hall from my parents' room, but since I was getting older now, and I was mostly well behaved, my parents decided that it'd be okay if I went ahead and moved down into the vacant room downstairs, directly beneath my current room. Which, my father and I would need to build first, but that was okay. He worked a lot, so the quality bonding time, not to mention the learned skill that I would get, was well worth it. Anyway, we finished my awesome new bedroom, and I even got to pick the paint and the carpet. Being a metalhead, of course, I wanted black on black. Yeah, they didn't go for that. So, a darkish blue-gray it was. Jackrabbit, I think it was called. They even hooked me up with a brand new full-size bed and a new TV. I wasn't a spoiled brat or anything, and we certainly weren't rich. But, this wasn't an everyday event, so there I was in my brand new room, sitting on my brand new bed, watching my brand new TV. Man, I felt like a fucking king. The whole basement, all to myself. Yep, all mine, all alone. Wait, all alone. In a basement that I'm suddenly realizing fucking terrifies me from time to time. I had been so preoccupied with the excitement of a new room that I hadn't really considered what living down there could potentially be like. But, come on. I'd already lived there for 8 years, so if anything really intense was gonna happen, I'm sure the activity would have already graduated from hearing the pool balls on the pool table roll and clack against each other by themselves, or witnessing clothes suddenly slide down the hanging rod. And who can forget the occasional creepy-ass mystery whisper that all three of us tried desperately to ignore. I was sure that I was just being paranoid. Don't get me wrong, that shit was creepy as hell, and definitely chicken-inducing. But As I said, anything that could have potentially driven me back upstairs probably would have happened already, right? Wrong. Unlike a lot of my friends, I took pride in keeping my room clean. I mean, when I had a girl over, I didn't want to be like, hold on, let me move these piles of clothes and dirty dishes first. Doesn't make a great first impression, you know? Anyway. That dreaded day had rolled around again. Laundry day. School was starting in a few days, and working at Lagoon over the summer allowed me to buy more school clothes that needed to be washed. Lagoon's a popular amusement park in Utah. I worked games. I fucking hated spending time in that laundry room. But, I was a big boy. I didn't expect my mommy to wash my clothes for me. Now, again, my new bedroom was the only room in the basement that was finished. The laundry room was nothing more than a cement floor, surrounded by mostly finished framework, a cement wall with a single window, which is part of the rear of the house. The furnace and hot water heater, washer and dryer obviously, and a rod to hang clothes, carpet remnant to stand on. That's about it. I tried to find a photo, but I wasn't able to, so I created this thumbnail. It was the best I could provide to give a better perspective. Directly behind the washer and dryer was a framed wall with a large piece of wood paneling that was attached to the other side. It didn't quite take up the entire framework, and there was a standard 16-inch gap between the first and the second studs on the far left side, closest to the cement wall. Beyond that wood-paneled wall was a small open corner room that had a single window, which, hadn't been open in years. A small bar with a couple of stools, and not much else. The basement windows were always kept locked, and wooden dowels remained in the tracks for extra security. There was also no outside access from the basement, and you're about to understand why all of this is relevant and necessary to explain. I threw in my first load of laundry, started the washer, and headed back to my room to play a game or my guitar to pass the time. A short while later, the wash cycle had finished, so I made my way over to put the clothes in the dryer and start another load. Reaching down into our top load washer, I started grabbing clothes and tossing them into the dryer on my right. As I did, out of nowhere, I started to get that same spine-tingling feeling that I had had in there several times before. As the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end and goose pimples formed, I did my level best to ignore the fact that I could feel someone looking at me that I knew was not physically there. I was finishing tossing the clothes into the dryer, and I reached in to retrieve the last article. As I came back up, right there in that 16-inch gap between the studs that the wood panel didn't cover, was the face of a man that I didn't recognize, and he was looking right at me. He didn't linger. In fact, he quickly moved behind the wood panel as soon as he noticed that I had seen him. Now, it scared the absolute shit out of me, but I didn't instantly think that I had just seen a ghost. My first thought was, who the fuck is in my house? I hurried toward the doorway to my right, and I grabbed this cherry wood police nightstick that I had left resting by the door frame on my way through. I wasn't about to confront whoever this was without something to defend myself. What if shit got crazy, you know? Which, it was a good possibility since this intruder was trapped with nowhere to run except through a plate glass window or by me. My night was about to get a lot more interesting. before I confronted Mr. Break-In, I decided to be diplomatic. So I stood right outside the laundry room doorway and shouted, hey dude, I don't know who the hell you are or what the fuck you think you're doing in my house, but you got about 3 fucking seconds to come out and explain what you're doing here before I grab my gun and your night gets really shitty. 1, 2, 3. I stood there for a few more seconds, then slowly crept forward, nightstick raised, and peeked around the corner. I didn't hear anything, nor did I see anyone. It was fairly dark over there, but I would have seen someone had there been someone standing there. The light was out and was activated by a pull string in the center of the room. So I took a good look around, but I still didn't see anything. The only place they could be now was hiding crouched behind the bar. So I turned on the light and gave a final warning. Hey man, I know you're back there behind the bar. Come out now and I won't press charges. Which, I mean, it was total bullshit, but whatever. I was trying to get him to come out. Come out now, asshole. I slowly moved around the side of the bar to see behind it, and was instantly shocked and horrified and confused all at the same time. What the fuck was going on? There was nobody there. I know for a fact I saw that dude. We looked right at each other. And no, I wasn't just being paranoid. No, my eyes weren't playing tricks on me. And no, some random intruder didn't just pull a Houdini. There was absolutely nowhere this dude could have gone that I wouldn't have seen. He was just simply... He wasn't fucking there anymore. I searched that entire basement and every window multiple times. I did the same thing upstairs too. All doors, windows, still locked, still undisturbed. Both my parents were at work, so I knew that I was completely 100% alone. No doubt about it. Was this really fucking happening to me? Did I seriously just see what I think I saw? No matter how I tried to explain this away, I already knew the answer. And it fucked me up. I knew I was the only one home. I know what I saw. Sure, I had heard plenty of weird, unexplained things down there, but never did I expect to see something like that. And who the fuck was that? I had never seen that dude before, and he wasn't scary looking, he wasn't all grotesque, he just looked like some guy. What the hell did he want? Why was he there? I don't know. I'm sure I'll never find out, but I never saw him again. I wish I could say that was the only time that I saw something unexplainable at this house. But that's a living nightmare for another time. Thank you for being a part of this living nightmare. We hope to disturb you again soon.